Bloomberg Audio Studios. Podcasts, radio, news.
This is the closing bell on the Stock Movers Report. The companies making moves at the close of U.S. trading with Carol Massar, Tim Stenovec, Romaine Bostick, and Scarlett Fu.
The S&P 500, only 110 stocks in the S&P 500 moved higher today. 390 declined.
All right, let's take a look at the sector level. You did manage to see some green, of course, when it comes to energy, when it comes to consumer discretionary, managing to poke into the green. This is a prettier picture, actually, than when I checked this board at about 9:40 this morning. You had every single sector in the red, but still overwhelmingly financials, healthcare, materials, consumer staples, all dragging this index down.
Okay, I managed to find some gainers today. I want to start with Levi Strauss. Shares higher by 11.3% today. They hit the highest level in more than a year. This after the company came out yesterday and boosted its net revenue forecast for the full year. A big question a lot of investors had was what has been and what will be the impact on the company from tariffs. Harmeet Singh, the company's CFO and chief growth officer, he told our Bloomberg News team that it'll be about $25 to $30 million through the end of the year. We actually had him on our program a few hours ago, and I asked him specifically about moving production, moving manufacturing to the United States, because that is exactly what the president wants to see. It doesn't matter if it's in Vietnam or China or Indonesia or where it is. The president wants to see it here in the U.S. He was decidedly firm in his answer. That is not going to happen for Levi Strauss. He mentioned that 98% of apparel that comes to the United States and that is sold in the United States is actually manufactured outside of the U.S., and they're not going to change that here when it comes to Levi Strauss. Though he's still working through tariffs and even making last-minute changes based on the news that he hears from the president, even up to late last night after earnings, he mentioned. Also, Performance Food Group shares surged higher today. Bloomberg News reported that the company has attracted takeover interest from U.S. Foods Holding Corp. It's a potential deal that would create a food distribution company with a combined sales of roughly $100 billion. This is according to people familiar with the matter. Shares higher by more than 4.8% today. The company would become the number one U.S. food service distributor with 18% of the $371 billion market. This is according to Bloomberg Intelligence. We should note there is no certainty that these deliberations will lead to transactions, and representatives for U.S. Foods and Performance Food declined to comment. And finally, this is a former micro cap that is now a small cap after today's move of close to 40%. Unusual Machines. It's a drone tech company based in Florida, and drone-related firms rallied today. This after Fox News reported that Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has issued orders to ramp up production and deployment of drones. Unusual Machines higher today by close to 40%. Josh Sullivan over at Benchmark says the memo focused on three main goals: bolstering U.S. drone manufacturing, delivering thousands of low-cost drones to the military, and integrating drone operating into training. Once again, shares higher by close to 40%, Nora.
Well, we've got a few names in the red as expected with the market closing lower today. I'm looking at shares of PayPal. That was the worst performing stock in the S&P 500 today. And we're seeing a lot of other fintech companies like Block and Affirm also falling as well. And that all came after a headline that we saw earlier as we were heading into the close with JP Morgan telling that these fintech companies that they're going to have to pay up for customer data. That could amount to hundreds of millions of dollars for access to customers' bank account information. So we're seeing those fintech companies falling, but also credit card firms like Visa, MasterCard also lower with the move really threatening to upend specifically the fintech sector's business models. Another stock I'm looking at is Albermarle. That's ticker ALB. $8.3 billion company. It's a lithium producer based in Charlotte, North Carolina, and it was cut to sell from neutral, at UBS, with its price target trimmed to $57 from $64. We have the analyst here encouraging investors to, quote, fade the bounce, as he expects lithium prices will remain lower. And one more stock we have for you, Boyd Gaming, ticker BYD, but not the BYD you're thinking of. It's a casino operator in Las Vegas, Nevada, $6.5 billion in market cap. And it was cut to neutral from positive. They're really pointing to the stock's valuation after selling its 5% ownership in FanDuel to Flutter. And this is all from Susquehanna Financial. They're also citing the renegotiation of its market access agreement.
All right, let's take a quick check in yields here. A little bit of a subdued day, but a lot of activity. When we talk about what happened on the week, a push higher once again across the curve, a second straight week where we see yields move higher, but more importantly is the complexion of that move, a definite slant to the upside, a steepening, a bear steepening of that curve, with most, of course, of the sell-off coming on the longer end of the curve, that 30-year yield up about 8 basis points on the day, and on the week, it's more than 9 basis points higher than where it was last Friday.
The Stock Movers Report from Bloomberg Radio. Check back with us throughout the day for the latest roundup of companies making news on Wall Street. And for the latest market-moving headlines, listen to Bloomberg Radio live. Catch us on YouTube, Bloomberg.com, and on Apple CarPlay and Android Auto with the Bloomberg Business app.